Hi friends, my name is Mackenzie, also known as M to the Third, and this is a follow-up video to my fall wardrobe plans. I want to give you a little update since it's been about a month since I did it, let you know if anything has changed. And when I posted that video, I had a bunch of people asking me questions, you know, on their own journey of creating their wardrobe, and so I've got a bunch of questions that I thought I would save towards the latter half of the video to answer for you. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and let's get to it. So if you haven't checked out my fall wardrobe planning video, definitely check that out up here. It'll give a lot of context to what's going on. But in that video, I basically talked about 3 sweaters that I was planning to knit, why I was planning to knit them, how I felt a little bit boring for wanting to knit them. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about how those plans are coming along, whether I'm going to stick to them, and all of the above. So the first sweater that I talked about was the ripple crop top. Update on that, I finished it and I really love it. And if you want to hear more about that and any modifications that I made, you can go to my latest podcast episode up here. But I'll just reiterate here that I really love it. I've been wearing it basically nonstop. I need to wash it, which I don't normally wash my sweaters because I don't need to, because they're sort of like an over layer, and I'll wear a shirt underneath to kind of give me a little bit of a barrier. And I can usually get away with like most of a season without washing something. Like the one that I'm wearing right now, there's actually quite a bit of space in the armpit, so it's not like all up in there. But I've been wearing the ripple crop basically as like a little t-shirt, and yeah, so it's like ready to be washed. And that is also, I sort of knew that that would be the case, so that's one of the reasons why I made it superwash, out of a superwash wool. So I'll be basically putting it in a lingerie bag, washing it on like very gentle, like the most delicate cycle that I have, and then laying it flat to dry. So even though it is superwash and I could potentially put it in the washing machine, I still want to, you know, make sure that I'm treating it with respect, making sure that I'm not being too rough with it, because I spend a lot of time on that and I am really enjoying wearing it, so I want it to last for as long as possible. So yeah, super happy with that. Insert some photos up here of me styling it and the TikTok that I made, but yeah, that's like my first finished object of the 3. So the second one that I talked about is one that is still a work in progress, but I have made some headway. The last time I talked about this sweater, which is the Stockbridge Cardigan by Isolde Teague, I knew that that it was like ready for me to start working on again, but I wasn't totally sure until I pulled it out during that video how far I had knit on it. It's a fingering weight sweater, completely stockinette, but if me wearing this basically every day, the one that I'm wearing right now, is any indication, it's gonna get a ton of wear. So let me show you the progress on that. In probably less than an hour, I finished off the second armhole, so now I have this like funny little hobbit vest. So basically everything on the body is done. I've seamed together what I need to seam together, and basically next is to pick up the stitches for the armhole, and the sleeve cap up here is built essentially by a bunch of short rows, and then I'll be able to knit the sleeve. So I've just got 2 sleeves and the button bands, and then I'm off to the races. I'm really excited about finishing this, but also it's just not thrilling knitting, and I've definitely been feeling like I need a little bit more, I don't know, stimulation maybe with my knitting. So it's kind of sitting a little bit on the back burner, but I will definitely, you know, I'm definitely like this close to beginning the sleeves. And I also want to do a really good job, so I don't want to like be sitting watching TV and kind of do a half-ass job. Half-ass job. That's also coming along. And then the final sweater that I had talked about is the one that I'm going to put on the screen right now, called the Girlfriend Cardigan. Why it is called that, I do not know. But I have received the second half of the yarn in the mail. I have done my little swatch. I did mention this. Come on. Come on. You could do it. It's following my face. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, look at that. It looks really nice. It definitely kind of like, it's a little bit darker than this sweater, but they're definitely like in the same realm of color. So yeah, I've done the swatch. I haven't begun it yet because, yeah, I just haven't wanted to yet. I really want to finish the Stockbridge cardigan before, but that's still on track. I still want to make it. And I've been thinking about what to do with the cardigan that it was inspired by. I talked about that in that last fall updates video, that I had found a wool sweater like cardigan at the thrift store, and that I was sort of basing the idea off of that. And I've been thinking I don't want to get rid of that cardigan, but it has been confirmed to me as I've worn it a little bit since the days are getting colder here in Portland, that it's just not, it's not the vibe. I don't know, it's just the way it fits. I explained all of those issues. But I have done this in the past because I liked because I like cropped cardigans. Sometimes I will take a full-length cardigan and just cut it. Usually I'll enforce it a little bit somehow. When I was punk, I didn't enforce it very well because that was like part of the look. But I think that I can kind of fold up the edge and stitch it in place and have like a cropped cardigan. And you might be seeing an update on that in a future DIY video. So stay tuned. But yeah, I don't want to waste the little bit of it that I have left. I don't want to waste that cardigan, even though it doesn't quite fit me entirely the way that I want it to. And I think it'll be cool to kind of rework it to have it fit like my style and stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that. So I wanted to talk about how that plan is feeling, because plans change, and one of the questions that I got was talking about, you know, like, yeah, the very practical part of sort of creating, you know, a wardrobe and the pieces that we want, and also just like following the whims of being a maker and being a creative person. And yeah, that's super legit. You know, I do struggle with that a little bit, but at the core of being like a maker, and especially a knitter where projects are kind of like a big, you know, commitment, I feel like I kind of have to follow my whim sometimes, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit into the bigger picture either. At this point, a lot of what I want to knit, I know how to pick colors and a fit and etc., to make sure that it's going to be, you know, wearable within my wardrobe and whatnot. So I can kind of like see something that I want and you know, go for it and still be confident that I'm not gonna just like leave it in the whip pile, donate it at some point, XYZ. But that's also just for now. Like, that could change in like 5 years. I don't know. But I digress. So I did swatch for something new that was not on the plan, but I think could be kind of a fun addition to my wardrobe, that fills the hole of wanting something interesting to knit. So let's take a look. I sort of make it seem like I saw this and I wanted it, and I'm just going for it, but that's not quite the case. I've had this book in my stash. It's a Marie Wallin book, for a year now, maybe just over a year. Let's just say a year. Let's just round it out. So it is Lakeland Collection 2, and there's one sweater in here that I was just fawning after, and that is called Windemere, and it is this. I wouldn't be surprised if I'd talked about this before on the podcast, but yeah, Marie Wallen's kind of like a color work queen. Okay, sorry, someone's moving trash cans. Maple hates it. And aside, last night I took Maple on a walk and they're like practicing some like, I don't know, pilot drills for the military, and we were walking down the street and like literally a deafening roar. Like I was trying to calm Maple down by talking to her and I could not hear my own voice. That was not fun because I thought she was gonna like she was pulling on her leash so hard. She was so freaked out and I had to carry her the rest of the way home. Yeah, so apparently that's a thing that happens. Okay, anyway, this book, that sweater. Yeah, so I have had this book, and when I bought the book, I also bought yarn to make it. And so they've been sitting in my stash for a while. It felt like a really big, monumental project because it's a lot of color work. And I knew that I would have to make some adjustments because the sweater does not go up to my size, which is not unusual. But I also... yeah, anyway, I just knew that I would want to make some adjustments. So, it's pretty long. It follows like that entire pattern, but I think I want it shorter. So to hit just below my natural waist, probably a little bit longer than the way the ripple crop hits so that I can wear it with pants. But yeah, I want this, but just a little bit different. The neckline looks pretty good, I think. Let's see. Yeah, that looks pretty comfortable. It's like a crew neck, like my favorite type. And you know, it's drop shoulder, so I'm gonna have to make it wider to fit in the right way because there's no armholes. And it also, I think the armholes are okay for my size, but I'm gonna have to check that too. So this is another reason why I was sort of like, I don't really want to like figure it out right now. Sometimes I just want to knit something and not worry about adjustments, or at least be able to cast something on and not think about adjustments. Now there's a crow. So I'm figuring that out. I don't think I will. I think it'll be doable. And if you are curious about how I'm going to take this pattern and adjust it for myself, leave a comment down below because I've been wanting to do project like diaries and I just really haven't been on top of my recording game. But this might be a good one to do because of the adjustments that I'm making. So let me know. But the yarn that I have for it is Mondim, which is by Retrosaria, and it's these two colors. So kind of this like, I don't know, rose, it's like a muted rose, I guess, and then this like natural white that kind of skews warm. So yeah, those together. And the other thing that I'm feeling, and we'll have to see how the swatch plays out, but here's my little swatch. Oh, is that upside down? Yeah. Here's my little swatch. It looks beautiful on camera right there. Wow. Cool. But this is, so the yarn that is used for the pattern is a woolen spun, so it's very toothy, very light. And the yarn, Mondim, is definitely worsted spun, so it's very tight. So this is very like dense in comparison. So I'm a little worried about that, but I'll have to just see how the gauge ends up working out. I haven't measured it because this is still a little bit damp. But it kind of has that like vintagey feel because of the color. I think it's really, like, it looks really, really pretty on screen. And I think it looks pretty in real life too, but like there's something about seeing it kind of from a distance, I think, that really, all of those patterns just really pop. So again, I'll kind of have to, I need to check my gauge, see if that needle size worked, which is the recommended needle size in the pattern, and go from there. And if I can't get gauge, then I think it's just not the right yarn, and I'll have to decide whether I want to buy yarn right now or if I want to do something else. So yeah, but that's kind of like the addition to the fall outfit plans. Before I switch gears completely and start answering the questions that I had left, I did also want to talk about this yarn, which is marketed as a sock yarn. I've talked about this before, and the disappointment I had with this other pair, where I like have barely worn them and had to do a bunch of darning. And so I've still been wearing them with the darned part, but I was wearing them the other day and the side just like burst. I mean, I sort of knew, like, that I had decided already that these were not, this yarn should not be a sock yarn. And I'm also not just like the first person to talk about that. But they're beautiful socks. I really loved them. And they're the second pair, if you saw my latest podcast episode, that are just like totally busted open. So the thing about both of these pairs of socks, one is not marketed as a sock yarn, and neither of them have nylon in them. So, you know, I've knit a lot of socks. Some have lasted, like I have some that are still around, like from 5 to 7 years ago, even longer than that sometimes, 8 years ago. But these ones did not last very long at all. And I don't think, like, I struggle with being like, you need to have nylon in your sock yarn, but like I have just found that it lasts a long time. It lasts longer. So yeah, there's like plastic in it and it won't compost, but like if you're getting more use out of something that you put many hours into making, I don't know, y'all. It just kind of makes more sense to me. What I would love to hear is if you have had really good success with a specific yarn that you have used that doesn't have nylon in it. Maybe it has mohair, something that you have spun. Like, I think it's just a bunch of factors that make a sock yarn as durable as I want it, including, you know, composition, fiber composition, including the way that it is spun, you know, all of the above. So if you would like me to go more in depth about sock knitting, and maybe for specifically knitting them like for a wardrobe, like, let's talk about it. It is Socktober. So leave a comment down below if you're interested in that, because I've knit a lot of socks and I like knitting socks and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So yeah. Okay, so to round this video off, I'm going to pull out my phone and answer all the questions that you have asked. Okay, so the first question that I got was asking me to say a little bit more about finding a color palette. So I think the biggest thing about finding a color palette is basically like training yourself to start being aware. I think that's like the hardest part of it. So I would say that, like, I started noticing a color palette when I was working at my first yarn store, and we would get these big shipments of yarn, and I was always drawn to like a very specific like range of like green to grellos. So like mustards, chartreuse, moss green, and that was really the first time that there was a color that I was just like, oh yes, that is like a very specific color that I'm very drawn to. In the past, in like my Slack group, I kind of had this color palette worksheet that we did, and this was like the exercise that I had come up with that I found really helpful, which was like, you know, when the other thing is like, this takes a lot of energy to sort of like start building this awareness. And so like, if you're not in the mood for it, like right this second, it's okay. It'll wait for you, you know. But what I would say is like, on a weekend when you're kind of doing chores, do all of your laundry, make sure everything is clean and put away. And I know sometimes that is like easier said than done for myself, so that's kind of why I put that caveat. But you know, just make sure like your wardrobe is like ready for you for the week. Then over the course of like 7 to 10 days, wear your favorite outfits, like whatever that is. And just take like a quick selfie. It doesn't have to be for anyone. You know, it can kind of just be like an exercise for you. But just snap a selfie in the mirror, or like set your phone up and take a cute picture, whatever you want to do, and save those to an album. Now there are like a bunch of apps that are like color picker apps. There's even a few filters on Instagram that do this, where you basically like upload a picture and it sort of picks out the, you know, the colors within the photo and creates like a little palette. So take your 10 photos, your 7 to 10 photos, and just start like seeing what colors are kind of being brung through there, and think about why you like the outfit too. This also kind of helps with like silhouettes that you're drawn to. And this could also be a moment where you're like, wow, I do not like anything in my wardrobe. These colors are not what I want to be wearing. This is the only thing that was available for me, so I settled. I know that that happens a lot with plus size people. And that can be super overwhelming to just be like, ugh, I don't like any of this. Just like be kind with yourself as you're doing this. Like, you know, it's easier said than done to like not be judgmental of our bodies and whatnot, but this is really like a scientific experiment to kind of just begin to build the awareness of what you feel the most comfortable in, what colors you have already in your wardrobe and what you like, and you know, what type of silhouette you might want to be wearing. So at that point you can kind of see whether you can continue with that, what colors you could add for like pops of color, and you know, what things you feel like you're missing. Like at the moment, if I were to do that, and I'm just kind of, I have built this awareness, so I am aware of the fact that I have a bunch of green pants. One that I've made that aren't my favorite, one that I bought from a slow fashion brand, and one that I bought like on a whim at some point. And none of them are quite perfect. They're not exactly what I want, but they're there. So in that case, like, I'm not really drawn to them, so I'm not wearing them, but I'm aware that they're there. I like the idea of green pants. I like that pop of color, but like I need to either sew a new pair or invest in a new pair, or even just like hem. Yeah, that's one of the exercises that you can do to kind of build awareness. But that can also happen like outside of clothing. Like start just taking pictures of pieces of art that you like, even like saving on Instagram to an album. I have an album on Instagram that's just called Palette, and on Pinterest, of just like, I see a photo and there's nothing in it that maybe like I'm particularly drawn to, but just like I love the color palette, and I'll save those. So again, it's kind of just like flipping a switch and starting to be aware of your surroundings in a different way that will start kind of building that color palette. And then also, like, it might be that you're like, oh, I love magenta, I'm gonna buy this magenta shirt, and you're like, this is better as an accessory. And that's also okay. It's a long process. And, you know, if you're feeling bad about like buying something and then being like, oh, I'm not going to wear this, once you build this up, the goal is for like longevity, and not like, it might take a while to get there, but once you're there, like, the point should be that we're not being expendable with the clothing that we have in our wardrobe. So again, like, just be gentle with yourself. There's no reason to be like, this is the only way to do it, I can't do it like that, I have failed. Like, this is a work in progress. We're all work in progresses. And yeah, just another thing to keep in mind. I kind of answered this earlier, but someone else is saying, how do you balance the excitement of planning with practical constraints, time? And yeah, so that's, I mean, slow and steady, man. You know, knitting is such a slow craft. A lot of textile crafts are. But man, when I'm done with a piece, I'm like so happy with it. So I kind of keep a queue of things that I'm interested in making. And those things bump off the list, bump down the list, other things move up the list. And I just try to be, again, like, gentle with myself about what I want to make. I am also definitely, I think, like, when you're in the mindset of building a wardrobe, it's a little easier to like stick to, you know, long haul projects, but not everyone has the capacity to do that. So again, like, just be gentle with yourself. If you can only make one piece a season or one piece even a year, that's more than enough. So yeah, I basically just keep a queue so that I know what I want to work on. In fact, the Windemere that I talked about earlier was on that queue for a long time, and it just kind of fit the bill for things that I wanted in my wardrobe, things that I wanted to knit at the moment, and it's been sitting there for about a year. So, you know, sometimes that's how it works. If you have the resources to buy, you know, the yarn and the pattern for something, even if you're not going to knit it immediately, sometimes I'll do that, and sometimes I get around to it, and sometimes it goes towards a different project, and all of those things are okay. So I hope that helps. Okay, so someone else asked, how do you balance being a creative who constantly wants to make while at the same time not consuming and creating more than necessary and producing waste? My philosophy might not be like the philosophy that works for you, but this is a thing that brings me joy. It like fulfills me. I have the time and space to practice it, and I am not responsible for the state that the earth is in. Corporations are. I am one person, and I am aware of like what I buy, and you know, I really like buying used craft supplies because I think a lot of people are in the same boat as you and I, as makers who, you know, stash stuff. I can't tell you how many like used hot glue guns I have bought because I can't find my last one. And most recently I bought a new one because I couldn't find my other ones. And me buying a hot glue gun once a year, even, you know, that's like not gonna make that big of a difference, you know, on a whole, for the state of the planet. And I've also seen people be like, no, nothing that you're doing is like too small. And I like get that as well, but like I don't want to hold myself back for something that like but you know, there are people who are making much bigger decisions with much more power than me that are having much more detrimental impacts on our planet. And, you know, as long as that keeps going unchecked, like me you know, deciding not to buy something that is plastic is not going to make that big of an impact. And I sort of mentioned this also in my last video and I've like mentioned this before, so I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it sounds very pessimistic, but for my like self moving through the world, it feels more optimistic. I can only do so much, and like just me making one piece of clothing in wool as opposed to like polyester is very significant. Me mending something that I bought, you know, even from a fast fashion brand, is significant. And that being said, as a plus size person, there's not a lot of options for me to be able to find my style in the body that I am in and, you know, continue to navigate the world and be concerned about, you know, the impacts on the planet. So I'm just saying that like that I'm already doing a lot more, but I try not to get caught up on what I am doing and how it might affect the planet. I think again, this is a case of just kind of like beginning to be aware, like building the awareness of like what I am doing and how I am navigating everything that, you know, really makes a difference. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that to your liking, but that's kind of my philosophy, because it's very easy to get caught up in worrying about the things that ultimately have very little to do with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, this is a multi-part question, so I'll kind of like read through it. I was thinking just last night how I need to create a capsule wardrobe from my existing clothes. My challenge is not adding 50 shirts from my favorite fandoms. I started by buying pins versus tees as well as patches, but now I have 2 jean jackets, so I'm stopping there. I'm at a loss. Maybe I need to start a one in, one out policy on my clothing, but I also don't want to create waste. I need some more food for thought myself. My mind is entrenched in this topic for sure, though. I thought that was really like funny in the sense that like I get it. I think there's like a lot going on in that question. I think part of it harks back to what I just talked about, where like there's like so few things. This is very dramatic, but like I was gonna say there's so few things that bring joy, but that's not what I mean. I mean that like if buying pins is something that brings you joy, then like buy a pin. If you're worried, you know, if you're thinking about clothing and whatnot, like get a cork board and put them on a cork board. Personally, a capsule wardrobe never felt like an option for me for a bunch of reasons. I know it was sort of like, and I think it still is sort of like the hit phrase for like a sustainable wardrobe, but as I was just talking about, like what even is sustainable? What even is a sustainable wardrobe, and what even is like a capsule wardrobe? When that conversation began, it really felt like that wasn't for me, because I didn't have money to put down for the types of clothes that they were suggesting should be part of it. I also found it interesting that it was so, to me, it felt very bland. It felt very like professional workwear. A lot of the examples of it that I saw, that's what it felt like. And that's not the way that I dress. And I happen to really like clothes, and I don't really want to like limit the amount of clothes that I have. I mean, I say that I do limit the clothes that I have. I guess I would say like there's no right way to do this. If you like have a pair of jeans that you mend instead of throw away, like that is a step in the right direction for a sustainable wardrobe. You know, I think that there's all of these ways of showing how to do things the correct way, and a lot of times doing it the correct way is like kind of a product of like of wealth, which most people don't have, a product of white supremacy, a product of like, you know, thin privilege. You know, like I can never aspire to do it in the way that they do, but I don't want those things, and I am not those things. So in some ways it can be exclusionary in a negative way, but in some ways I want to distance myself from it to be excluded. So, you know, I think again, like the biggest piece of this for me, as I've been reflecting on my answers to these questions, is again, like building the awareness, like being intentional about being like, okay, these pants like do not fit anymore. It is time to move them along. And how do I do that? Well, for me, I have started building a wardrobe that is, you know, natural fibers, and or I wear them until they are like disintegrating on me. And so both of those things are pretty unusual for like other people in our time. So I'm already doing a pretty good job. So I don't know, just like there's not a right way to do it. I don't know if that like helps, but find your joy. Don't try to do it if it makes you unhappy. And you're already probably doing a good job if you're thinking about it. The last question that I have is about where I buy linen dresses. I feel a little like, you know, I have bought my most recent one that was in this TikTok from Tradlands. It was the first time I've purchased from them, and in fact I'm wearing the shirt version of that dress right now, and I've really liked it. And it has a fairly good size range. I am not quite at the top of their size range, which is usually the case. I would also recommend Sotella Co. I'll put links to all of these down below. I will also say I know that Not Perfect Linen on Etsy, a lot of people use them. They do not go up to my size. Nettle Studios, they have a pretty good size range and they have a lot of fun colors. So I'll put all of those down below, and I'll also list Mariel Elizabeth's link. She has a really good selection of like plus size clothing, slow fashion makers that follow sort of like a set of ethical standards. I hope that that helps you find what you want. I know that like it can be so frustrating to be like, yeah, that is what I like, and that is what, you know, I aspire to be wearing, and to just not have access to it, because that has been the case for me for a really long time. And I would say only in like the last 3 years have I been able to finally start finding the things that I want to wear made in the way that I want them to be made. And available in my size. So, yeah, I think that is it for this little update video. I really hope that it gave you some more stuff to chew on. If you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video, because I'm going to start doing some more slow fashion stuff, because I really, really love the conversation that has been kind of like sparking, based on, you know, the videos that I've been doing. And yeah, definitely stick around. Yeah, thanks for being here today, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.